more often than not, people have an age where they want to retire, but never so much of a plan with regards to how are they going to sustain their retirement years. By delaying your retirement, you also may have to work longer. So you work longer, you reduce the opportunities to be pursuing further interests or spending time with family and friends.
Hello, you're watching Tea Time Tuesday. I'm Rashan Gidwani. Today we're discussing a popular topic, how to ensure our financial security during our golden years. If you're worried about outliving your savings or dealing with unexpected expenses like high medical bills, be assured that there are steps you can take to plan ahead and protect your financial future. So where do we begin? And what are some things to avoid? Joining us today is Khairuddin Omar, Vice President of IAM Advisory. He's here to share his expertise and guide us through. Hi, Khairuddin, welcome to the show. How are you today?
Hi Roshan, thank you for having me. I'm good.
Absolutely, it's such a pleasure. So Khairuddin, let's get into it. In Singapore, what is the recommended retirement age? And why is it important to plan for retirement?
I think in Singapore, if it's possible, we want to retire by tomorrow, right? But we all know that that's not a possible thing to do. Right, so the recommended age of retirement for Singaporeans in Singapore is 62 due to the re-employment legislation set by the government. But they have plans of bringing it up to 65. And I think the reason why it's important to be planning for retirement is that more often than not, people have an age where they want to retire, but never so much of a plan with regards to how are they going to sustain their retirement years. Right, so for example, if they were to be retiring, they tell me like, hey, Kai, I want to retire at 60, I want to retire at 55, for example. The life expectancy rate in Singapore, it's 84. So if they were to retire at 60, that's 24 years of retirement that they have to sustain. So I think it's important to plan for retirement to ensure that you can maintain your standard of living without having to sacrifice things that you love.
For millennials, what are the consequences of delaying retirement planning and how can they plan ahead to secure a financial future?
For millennials who delay their retirement planning, right, they may have to save more as opposed to someone who started way earlier, right? So the consequences is that once they have to save more, they have to sacrifice certain things that they might like and love. And secondly, by delaying your retirement, you also may have to work longer. So you work longer, you reduce the opportunities to be pursuing further interests or spending time with family and friends.
So for those who haven't started yet, what are some practical and effective strategies that they can employ to catch up and get back on track? Is it ever too late to start planning for retirement?
I don't think anyone is ever too late to plan for their retirement. I think, well, of course, the earlier you start, the better, right? But of course, have this thinking that, hey, it's better that I start than not at all, all right? So with regards to practical steps and strategies, I would say is to, number one, is to save more. But the thing about this is that maybe people would say, Kai, how do I save more? I only have this amount of money every single month. I can't play catch up and stuff like that. But to me, I think do not underestimate the power of compounding. Do not underestimate the power of being consistent and being disciplined, because it can, I think regular savings can really eventually get you into that comfortable retirement fund that you would like to have. Second of all, I think is to cut down on expenses. Many of times, people do not have clarity with regards to where their money goes to, especially now that everything is cashless. You pay with your phone, you pay with your card, you tend to spend and spend and spend, and overall, in the long term, you tend to overspend because you don't realize where your money goes to, right? So with regards to that, I think it's best to track your expenses. So my company has this fintech called Merlin, right? So this is where we help our clients see where they are spending on, and we all start with their income, and from there we look through what they are spending on a monthly basis. So over here, we will be asking about all the little nitty-gritty stuff with regards to expenses, because sometimes it is little things that would add up in the long term. So with regards to that, there are also apps right now that you can have downloaded on your Google Play or your Apple Store. So from there, you can actually see where your expenses are going every single day, and in turn, in a week and in a month eventually. As much as this is something that not a lot of people want to do, but to delay your retirement and to work longer. So when you work longer, you can possibly catch up to those peers of yours who started way earlier, right? And last but not least, I think if you don't think you're disciplined enough to be doing all these things, you can always seek financial advice from your financial advisors, people you can trust, to help you mitigate all of this.
So you mentioned the cashless bit, right? People are spending more using their card, that kind of thing, and then tracking your expenses. What's a strategy that one can employ to kind of do that? Would you say keeping a journal helps with that?
Keeping a journal is one way to go about it, but then there are apps nowadays to make the tracking our expenses way easier. So you can just, like, every time you spend, it might be a very tedious thing to do, but over in a long time, like, it's gonna be very beneficial for you. So once you see your expenses and you realize maybe you take Grab, you take a lot of like rides, and you spend a lot on like miscellaneous stuff. Then now that you can see your expenses more clearly and you have clarity, you'll be able to have more confidence to plan for retirement. And because I believe, like, with clarity, there's direction, and with direction, you can have more confidence with regards to your retirement plan and your savings and expenses.
Have you observed any common retirement mistakes? And what advice would you give to people to help them avoid making those same mistakes?
We tend to underestimate the amount of money that we need during retirement. Many of times people do not factor in things like inflation, rising cost of living. So they would think like, I only need this X amount of money to sustain me for my retirement. But they forget that things just get more expensive. And when things get more expensive, the things that they love and like gets more expensive as well. So it's very important for them to realize that, hey, as much as I'm saving an amount of money every single month, would it be enough to sustain my retirement?
Here's a quote. Many millennials spend more on coffee than they save for retirement. What are your thoughts on this? Do you agree?
I don't think it's an all or nothing approach. It's like either buy coffee or I plan for retirement. I think it's you need to find the right balance between like enjoying life and planning for retirement plans. I think the whole point is to doing all of this guilt-free, meaning to say, as long as you have put aside 10 to 15% of your monthly income for retirement or for your future planning, right? I think you can definitely do that if it makes you happy.
How does one trade off between short-term expenses and long-term financial goals? And how does this affect retirement planning?
When it comes to that question, if someone were to be spending too much on their short-term expenses, they may tend to neglect their long-term planning. So when that happens, is that you have lesser to be put aside for your retirement, right? Because you always spend the, I would say we can have this conversation of like instant gratification and delayed gratification. So the short-term expenses is the instant gratification. It makes you happy then and there. But you tend to neglect your long-term planning, which is your delayed gratification. Many of times people don't actually think about retirement or long-term planning because it's too far ahead. It's not something they can see. So I think that's probably the reason why it is neglected. The trade-off would be that they have to save more for their retirement, and they probably have to delay their retirement, which is something I don't think anyone wants to do. But the fact that you spend too much on your short-term expenses and you neglect your long-term, that's something you might possibly have to do. But of course, like if you were to be taking proactive steps in order to ensure that this does not happen, I think that's definitely something that you could look into as well.
Okay, what are some of these proactive steps?
One of the proactive steps I would mention is, to just start. Never think you're too late. Never think like it's not enough and stuff like that. Do not underestimate the power of compounding. Do not underestimate the power of like regular savings, being consistent. So as much as you might think, I can't be putting aside X amount of money every month, I can put in more than my peers who started earlier. Try not to have that kind of mindset, but try to feel, hey, I'm already starting. I'm happy that I have started, as opposed to people who don't even have the intention to start. So that's you're already miles ahead of people who do not want to start, perhaps. So that's something you can do to just start to begin with. And with regards to practice steps, the second of all, I would say is invest into diverse range of assets such as stocks, bonds, and real estates to minimize risk and maximize returns. All right, and of course, the CPF, like special account, they're giving 4% now. So I think that's something you can definitely do moving forward.
How does retirement planning fit into the picture for millennials who find themselves in the sandwich generation, juggling responsibilities between their children and their aging parents?
This question about the sandwich generation is something that I feel very strongly about. It's actually one of the reasons why I made the switch to become a financial advisor. We are right now in this generation, the sandwich generation. So one day, when we have kids, perhaps they are going to be relying on us, and our parents are going to be relying on us as well. So that's where we are stuck in the middle. So with regards to the second generation, as long as we ensure that we have a sufficient amount of retirement, so we do not have to rely on our kids and we do not have to burden them. Because I think every dollar given to you as a grandparent is a dollar lesser given to your grandkids. So that's maybe if your kids were to give you $1,000 a month, that's $1,000 lesser for your grandkids to be spending on for the things that they love and like. So it's always important to be ensuring that, I think having the why is more important than the what and how. The what and how is simple, to just save aside money every single month and invest your money in things that are, I would say, giving you returns, right? But I think having a strong why is more important than everything else, because if you have a strong why, even if it might be difficult to put aside money every single month, you go back to your why and say, hey, the reason why I want to be doing this, the reason why I want to be planning for retirement, the reason why I want to be ensuring that I do not put this burden on my kids.
Khairuddin, thank you so much for joining me. I believe that we're now more equipped to deal with retirement, and I really appreciate your time.
Thank you so much, Roshan, for having me.
Brilliant.
Thank you.
We'll see you again soon.
Thank you.
Khairuddin shared some insight into why it's important to plan for retirement and what some pitfalls are if we don't. Stay tuned for our next episode, which will feature more insights and analysis. I'm Roshan Gidwani, and you've been watching Tea Time Tuesday. Please like and subscribe for more. See you again.